Mass Effect transition successful, Commander. Joker announced as the blue energy envelope bled away into the familiar black void of space. Welcome to the Prana system, middle of nowhere space. Scans are showing we have some lovely attractions like a handful of micrometeoroids, some gas clouds, and a bunch of ships registered belonging to some Solarian, Krogan, and Turian politicians glaring at each other just outside weapon ranges. Honestly, I'd say that last bit was the start of a bad joke. All we need is the punchline. Yeah? Shepard hummed as her eyes roamed over the source of her future headache. What would that be? I dunno, maybe something like what do you do when a meeting between a Dalatras, a Battlemaster, and a Primarch doesn't explode? Send in a Spectre. I do not believe that would be considered funny, Jeff. Edie commented, getting a shrug from the Normandy pilot. Everyone's a critic. Well, let's hope that no one else shares your humor, Joker. Shepard chastised. The last thing we need is a Krogan-Solarian war with everything else going on. That said, she took a deep breath as she prepared to spend a few hours babysitting more politicians. Send the signal to the two groups we are ready to receive them on the Normandy. They can jump in system now. Shepard had already not been looking forward to this assignment when she got word that the Solarians had stuck their fingers into the Turian-Krogan negotiations, but she knew it was going to be a headache and a half when the Dalatras had refused to be present in person until the Normandy was ready to host her. Something about kidnapping or assassination concerns. As a burgeoning politician against her will, Shepard knew that was a pretty big insult to the Krogan and was probably an indication of how cooperative the Solarians were going to be overall. And then the Krogan surprised everyone by first off, not flying into a rage, but then even copying the Dalatras' behavior, citing the same concerns. An unusual move for them, to say the least. It might have been for the best though. Even if the groups involved were constantly sniping and insulting the others, the leaders, the ones that actually were going to make decisions in the end, were out of the way until the actual meeting. Hopefully that would mean Shepard could remind everyone there was a galactic invasion going on at the moment and that they needed to work together if they didn't want to go the way of the Protheans. Signal sent, ships are squawking, we should be seeing the Dalatras' ship right about now. Joker narrated as a luxury frigate-class ship dropped out of FT a relatively short distance from the Normandy and after a minute or two detached, a shuttle heading right for the Normandy's hangar. The Krogans are right behind them and, holy shit. Shepard couldn't even reprimand the pilot as a massive 800-meter dreadnought dropped into real space because she had the same damn reaction. Where the hell did that thing come from? Edie. She practically demanded. IFF shows as the Krogan diplomat transport vessel. The AI responded immediately. Energy readings show no active scans or weapons we can detect. Ship profile also matches the ones we encountered at Palaven. Then I really hope we're right that they're Revan's friends. Joker muttered as his hands twitched over the Normandy's controls, ready to maneuver in any direction at the first sign of hostilities. New transmission. Krogan transport vessel is sending out a shuttle. They are requesting landing sequence codes. Shepard took a deep breath and made a judgment call. The dreadnought hadn't been hostile so far, and she couldn't exactly abandon the Solarian Dalatras in the middle of space without a very good reason. Send the info. I'm gonna go meet the shuttles once they land. Hopefully I can calm everyone down and ask who thought it was a good idea to come to a diplomatic meeting and that. She jabbed a finger towards the massive warship, monster. Jealous, Commander? Yes. She loved her ship, but that thing looked like the Normandy could park inside it. Oh. Hair. I wish I could have seen the looks on their faces. Rex chuckled again as the shuttle prepared to enter the Normandy's hangar bay. Prissy, know-it-all amphibians. I bet they got a good scare. Too bad I couldn't convince you to bring the other ships. I bet I could have made a few of them drop dead from, what do you call it? A heart attack. Could have made them drop from a heart attack. Yes, hilarious. Revan said dryly. Especially because I could have sworn you told them we were coming. So there was no reason for them to be surprised by our arrival, unless of course someone forgot to provide the specifications of our ship for some reason. If Revan was expecting Rex to be at all apologetic for surprising several diplomatic craft with a harrower, she was clearly going to be disappointed. Ha! They've got the STG, don't they? If they expected a Krogan to grab a ride on anything other than the biggest, baddest ship he could find, they don't know us as well as they think. It's not my fault the sneaky bastards missed your group and didn't ask what we consider a diplomatic transport. Considering how many stories of Krogan that settled for hitching rides on second-hand rust buckets to get to their destinations for various reasons Revan overheard from her Quarian crew, she knew that was a bold-faced lie. Somehow she doubted Rex would care all that much if she did decide to call him out though, so she decided to just let it lie. Is that so? How unfortunate for them. She mused as she felt the shuttle dock and began powering down. Though I suppose the fun is over now. Ready to face the consequences of your actions, Mr. Diplomat? The Sith took a great deal of enjoyment watching Rex's face contort in disgust. No need to insult me. He grumbled. Yeah, let's get this over with. Revan, Rex, and a bodyguard Geth unit exited the shuttle into the hangar bay. Unsurprisingly, there was a greeting party right outside to meet them headed by a serious-looking Commander Shepard, at least until she saw exactly who just walked out onto her ship. Rex? Shepard. The commander made a few angry abortive movements at both the Krogan and the direction of Revan's ship. Rex. She growled. Shepard. Rex shrugged nonchalantly, apparently unbothered by the chaos he caused. Rex. Shepard groaned as she dragged a hand down her face, which was about when Revan decided enough was enough and stepped around the massive Krogan. Are you two done now? Or are you going to keep repeating each other's names? Revan? The Sith sighed. Apparently they weren't quite done yet. Yes, hello Jane. It's good to see you, Argyle. What? She cut off when several people gave her some odd looks, including the commander. Nothing, it's just that not a whole lot of people call me that. Feels weird actually. Right, anyway, we've got the Primarch and the Dalatras waiting in the conference room, so we don't have a lot of time to talk. I need to know, that ship you came in on, is it the only one showing up here? And does that one have any problems or new races I need to worry about? Revan noted that Shepard not only knew about the Harrower, but also that there were more like it. And considering most of the Empire's fleet was busy in the Terminus systems, there was really only one place they could have seen her ships. And considering the Turian Primarch was on the Normandy, it didn't take a genius to figure the Normandy had been at Palaven. Good. If the Council races had independently sourced recordings of her fleet in action, that would save time in future negotiations. Less of a chance of pundits saying her reported capabilities were falsified or inflated. But to answer the Spectre's question, the rest of my battle group is returning for repairs, so only one ship for now. As for the crew, besides the Quarian and Geth, we do have a handful of other races, but none that should be unfamiliar to you. Well, at least now we know where they came from. Geth, seriously? Shepard muttered under her breath, then louder, all right Rex, follow me. The Primarch is waiting, and the sooner we finish, the sooner we can get back to saving the galaxy. We're going to have to catch up later though, it seems like you have a few stories I need to catch up on. The group simply followed behind the commander, and since the Normandy was not an especially large ship, it was only a short time before Shepard, Rex, and Revan entered the conference room where the Primarch and Dalatras were waiting. Revan's bodyguard unit was forced to wait outside. While the rest of the room was settling in, Revan took a moment to inspect the two leaders she had not encountered yet. The Turian Primarch Adrian Victus was clearly not a career politician, as the Sith Empress could easily read the impatience and frustration on his face despite not being extremely familiar with Turian facial expressions or body language. In some ways he reminded her of her old Mandalorian companion Canderous Ordo. Both Vicus and Ordo were far more at home on a battlefield than in a stateroom, but while Ordo had eventually gone on to lead his people as Mandalore under her reign, and did an incredibly competent job of it, it seemed that Victus was struggling to adapt to his new role. Probably because the position had simply fallen to him rather than him deciding to take the responsibility himself. Victus would probably adapt in time, but Revan made a note to see if she could push for some agreements between her empire and the Turians while he was thinking more like a general than a politician. Dalatras Linron, on the other hand, was his exact opposite and a consummate politician, given how easily she inserted herself into a discussion that the Solarians honestly had no stake in at the moment. Given Revan knew about Rex's demand, they would have likely been involved later on, but the initial meeting was simply a summit to secure Krogan warriors to help assist the evacuation of Palaven and its moons and free up enough of their navy to send a relief force to Earth. The Solarians had no reason to stick their fingers into this summit, yet here their leader was, attempting to prevent the Krogans from gaining any sort of political foothold with another race. The Krogan is in no position to make demands. The Dalatras snapped when Rex did not immediately pledge to send the members of his allied clans to relieve the Turians. The Krogan has a name, Erdnot Rex. Rex growled back. And I'm not just some junkyard Varan you unleash whenever you're in trouble. Besides, I've got my own problems. Reaper scouts have arrived on Tukanka. So why should I care if a few Turians go extinct? He shrugged and shifted his glare to the Primarch. Trying to drag out negotiations will get you nowhere, Rex. I have no time for it. Victor said impatiently as his eyes flicked between Rex and Revan. And it seems you found someone that can help with your Reaper problem for a bit. Just tell us what you want. For the moment Revan just returned his look and said nothing. This was still the negotiation between the Krogan and Turians. For the moment. I'll tell you what I need. Rex said, leaning over the table and fixing the Primarch, Dalatras, and Shepard with a hard look. A cure for the genophage. Absolutely not. The genophage is non-negotiable. The Dalatras immediately protested, making Revan smile slightly under her mask. Since she was the first one to speak, now this was an open negotiation. On what grounds, Dalatras? The Sith asked. Considering the situation, I think very few things are non-negotiable. The Solarian shot her a look. Because my people uplifted the Krogan. We know them best. You mean you used us? Rex interrupted. To fight a war you couldn't win. It wasn't the Solarians or the Asari, or even the Turians that stopped the Rachni. It was Krogan blood that turned the tide. And after that you became almost just as big a threat as they were. The Dalatras fired back. The Krogan expanded with no regard for any other race, seized technology and resources as they pleased, and when that wasn't enough they targeted already populated worlds and colonies either to satisfy their lust for battle or to keep expanding. She looked at the others around the table before settling on Rex. The genophage was the only way to keep your urges in check. And I'll not see one galactic threat defeated just for another to immediately take their place. Revan didn't even need her force abilities to sense the rage pouring off Rex at the moment. Neither did anyone else. So before an act of violence brought the meeting to an abrupt end, Victor spoke up. Dalatras, you may not like him, but Rex has a point. Insulting him won't change that. I won't apologize for speaking the truth. The Dalatras brushed aside the light reprimand. We uplifted the Krogan to do one thing, wage war. It's all they know because it's all we wanted them to know. It sounds like your people should have done a better job thinking things through. Shepard said coldly. Was it really a surprise the Krogan revolted? Revan remembered that the commander had seen the lengths Krogans had put themselves through in an attempt to cure the genophage themselves the last time she was on Tukanka. Part of her felt a brief moment of pity for the Dalatras. She was used to arguing numbers and future consequences with other politicians, not talking to a warrior and a soldier that needed results now being moderated by a bleeding heart that would not stand for people's suffering if she could do something about it. Revan herself was probably the closest to who the Dalatras normally worked with, but the Empress also wanted the Krogan for her own goals. The Solarian leader had completely misread her audience and was unintentionally uniting them with her rhetoric. That's precisely my point, Commander. We made a rash decision. We turned to the Krogan in desperation. It's the same mistake you're about to make today. The Dalatras said. No good can come from curing the genophage. I disagree. Revan spoke up. It would give the Krogan a rallying cause to center themselves around. Currently they have no culture to speak of because most of them have no reason to consider their future. With the cooperation of their leaders we could guide their emergent culture to something that would integrate better with galactic civilization than when they were first uplifted. Rex has already proved it possible on Tucanka, and with the war going on few would find the support to speak against him if he brings back a cure. And what happens when the war is over? The Dalatras demanded. They will break any peace we establish, and what then? Will you, some terminus warlord, risk yourself to undo the damage done? I rather doubt it. If it comes to that then we find a new way to keep the peace. Shepard argued. And they'll break that too. Enough. Victus finally exploded. This is all theoretical. It would take years to formulate a cure. There's no time. My information says otherwise. Rex said to the surprise of everyone. A Solarian scientist, Malon, grew a conscience. He was on my planet testing a cure on our females. Rex narrated as he moved to the head of the table and began uploading something to the holoprojector. I remember. His methods were barbaric. Shepard confirmed. What you didn't know is that other females survived his experiments. Rex continued as a recording from some sort of facial cam, controlled by a Solarian based on the shadow on the floor, showed a holding area with several female Krogan standing in isolated cells, unhappy but very clearly alive. So the Dalatras here sent in a team to clean the whole mess, and to take them prisoner. Revan could feel the Dalatras panic at the footage. Where did you get this? It could be a fabrication. Don't insult me. Rex shouted, pointing angrily at the Solarian. Those are my people. They're immune to the genophage, and you are going to give them back. Dalatras, is this true? Victus demanded, and Revan decided to tip the scales just a bit. With everyone focused on the other side of the room, she raised her hand slightly and made a small mnemonic gesture while reaching out to the Dalatras's mind. There was no time for anything impressive, but a small compulsion to tell the truth. The females are being kept at one of the STG bases on Sorkesh. She said tonelessly before looking shocked that she even spoke at all. Then we know where we're going. Shepard grinned triumphantly. A gesture Rex returned. Let's get the females. You are not setting foot on Sorkesh. The Dalatras protested. I will not allow it. The Primarch may be willing to overlook the damage the Krogan will do, but how will curing the genophage benefit my people? How long do you think you'll last alone against the Reapers? Shepard asked, clearly at the end of her patience. Because if you don't help, that's how it'll end up. And I'll be the last friendly Turian you'll ever see. Victus added darkly. You can't be serious, Commander. The consequences of this will be nothing compared to what happens if the Reapers win. Shepard interrupted. This is ridiculous. You would have me destroy any chance of peace after the Reapers, for nothing. We either bow to your demands or you turn your backs on us. Then how about I offer you something tangible in return? Revan offered an olive branch. Sorkesh is one of the most technologically advanced planets in the galaxy. The components they produce are crucial for defending against the Reapers. In return for the Krogan females, the Sith Empire will provide it with a planetary shield. One capable of preventing the Reapers from landing on the surface without disabling or destroying it first. Knowing everyone here would not simply accept her words at face value, Revan took over the holoprojector and showed several examples of the working shields her people had already deployed. including a battle against a small pirate group that failed to bring the shield down even after ramming into it and being cleaned up by the defense force later, and the technical details of the device. Vidalatras scoffed. And how long would it take to procure one? Even if you have such technology, it must be new if no one has heard of it before now. And I'm sure you will not relinquish one before your own worlds are secure. Revan turned to stare impassively at the Solarian. I happen to have a functional shield generator on my ship. All it needs is a large enough power supply. Victus at least was looking at the demonstration with clear desire in his eyes. Not surprising considering the state of his planet. These shields, would it be possible? I'm sorry, but it would be useless to deploy one on Palaven unless you could remove the Reapers from the surface first. But I would be willing to negotiate accepting refugees to a world already covered by a shield later. Revan interrupted. The Primarch obviously wasn't pleased by the rejection but nodded his head and turned to the Dalatras. Your answer? He demanded. If the shield works like she says it does and is installed, I would accept the deal. The Dalatras said reluctantly. But it will take time too? No. It happens now. Victus objected. As Council Spectre, Shepard can oversee the exchange. The female Solarian stared hatefully at him before nodding. Fine, but I will not allow that dreadnought anywhere close to Surkesh. That is non-negotiable. It was Revan's turn to scowl, but she nodded in return. I'll have the components moved to Normandy. We are agreed, then. Let's get moving. Shepard declared, bringing the meeting to a close and moving towards the exit, followed by Rex and Victus. As Revan moved to follow them, the Dalatras decided to get the last word in. I won't forget this, Commander. A bully has few friends when he needs them most. Moving the planetary shield components ended up being a little more difficult than just sending a message to the Harrower's captain. Mostly due to the limited space on the Normandy. The difference between a frigate and a star destroyer wasn't exactly small. And that was even considering that Revan was only transferring over the shield generator and projector. The power source would still need to be sourced on Surkesh. In the end, it just wasn't even physically possible to fit most of the machinery on the Normandy, even if they fully dedicated all hangar space and ditched the extra equipment and shuttles already on board. And since the Dalatras remained adamant that the Harrower remained out of Surkesh's orbit, they were forced to split the generator's parts between several of the diplomats' ships before heading towards the relay. Revan had no illusions that the Solarians wouldn't use the chance to scan everything in their possession to attempt reverse engineering the whole system later, but she also wasn't worried. She made sure the most important parts were transported by the Normandy and would be extremely difficult to study once the shield generator was assembled. There was also one other trick preventing the amphibians from stealing the system for themselves. The Sith pushed those thoughts from her mind for the moment, though, simply enjoying the sudden peace of just being another passenger on the ship instead of Empress for a little while. It was just unfortunate that she had to relax in the ship's new lounge area rather than her old quarters, but from what she understood, those had been repurposed into a media room for a Warfront reporter Shepard picked up somewhere. And speaking of the commander, I didn't take you for a whiskey kinda girl, Shepard commented as she joined Revan at the bar. No? Yeah, you seem like a red wine type. Shepard continued. Sitting up on some kind of throne, sipping on a glass as some politician grovels before you. That sounds rather specific. I take it you had some fantasies while dealing with the more political side of things. Revan chuckled, taking another sip of her drink. Shepard grumbled under her breath for a bit and snagged a bottle of alcohol and glass for herself. Only after she poured herself a drink and took a sip did she respond, maybe once or twice. She admitted. I'm a little jealous that you can just say something and it'll get done. I lost count of how many meetings I had to sit through just going over previous meetings. I started daydreaming about what everyone was doing once the ground team split up just to stay even slightly sane. The Empress could only laugh again. Say something and it'll get done? If only. As the Empire expanded throughout the terminus systems, more and more of Revan's time and attention was spent integrating new planets and making sure the ones she already controlled actually listened to her orders. The Geth and Quarians listened with few issues, but the assorted other races on various planets had little reason beyond self-interest to follow orders. And before the Reaper's arrival, plenty of them had been willing to drag their feet to get the benefits Revan was spreading throughout the fledgling Empire without putting in much effort on their side. That had somewhat changed recently, with the Reapers attacking all over the galaxy, but it was still annoying to deal with when planets Revan knew were underproducing demanded more protection anyway. The two of them sat in companionable silence for a bit, but Revan could feel Shepard's curiosity brimming in her emotions. And sure enough, before they had even finished their drinks, Shepard started asking questions. "So, planetary shields. How does that work?" The Sith smiled slightly. "Technically, it's a system of multiple shields working together. One system stops physical objects past a certain size or speed very similar to your existing kinetic shields, and the other stops high-energy projectiles. Those are shaped through a focusing lens and used to cover a planet." "And you just happen to be carrying one with you?" Shepard asked skeptically. "Of course not." Revan shook her head. "But my ship was carrying a theater shield designed to do the same thing on a smaller scale. You can increase the size of the shield to cover a whole planet with enough power, but eventually parts will start burning out even if the shield isn't being strained. I expect the one going to Sorkesh to last a bit more than a year at most unless the Solarians start poking at it. Forcing them to negotiate for more parts from the Empire if they wanted to keep their fancy new shield working," Revan didn't say. "A year, huh?" Shepard mused. "The Dalatras will probably be pissed with that, but if she's still around to complain by then it means we're doing something right. But it sounds like things can still get through the shield. Small enough objects moving below certain speeds." Revan agreed, draining the last of her drink. "Shuttles and landing craft would have no difficulty, but those are a lot easier to defend against than a full-sized Reaper landing in the middle of one of your cities or bombarding it from orbit. Any chance you can spare a few more?" "Not for several months at the least," Revan said bluntly. Even with fully automated factories courtesy of the Geth, the components needed for the shield systems were complex and took time and care to manufacture. And that was assuming the factories had the material they needed. There was already a list of where each newly completed generator was supposed to be sent that would only grow longer and more complicated as more planets demanded one for themselves and existing ones were damaged or destroyed by the Reapers. Revan was only willing to give one up because it was an incredible political move. The Krogan and Turian leaders couldn't forget Revan's involvement in securing their goals, and the Solarian leader was pacified after getting pushed into a corner. Not to mention it allowed the Empire to reveal the existence of the shield system through more neutral parties than whatever spies were reporting back or the Asari Republic after she had stolen one of their unofficial colony worlds. "Damn, too bad," Shepard muttered, ignorant of Revan's thoughts. "I'd love to know we could stop the Reapers from just dropping on civilian sectors. It might help with the refugee situation on the Citadel." The commander finished off her own beverage and stood up. "I wish we had more time to catch up, but we should go. The ship's almost at Sorkesh and I want this to go as quick and smooth as possible. Land, get the Krogan females, plug in the shield system, get out. Easy." Revan shot the other woman a dirty look. "You realize now that you've said that, this will be anything but?" "Nah, I'm trying for a double bluff this time. The universe knows I'm calling it out, so this will be a milk run just to spite me." "That's not how that works." The Sith deadpanned. Shepard shrugged. "Couldn't hurt to try." "Oh. Commander, Solarian ground control says we don't have clearance to land." Shepard very carefully did not turn towards the space elf empress currently glaring a hole in the back of her head. This was not her fault. "Tell them the Dalatras authorized this herself." She ordered Lieutenant Cortez and patiently waited for the shuttle pilot to get a response. Unfortunately, and predictably. Rex wasn't in the patient sort of mood. I knew they would never keep their word. He snarled, already moving towards the shuttle door. Let's see them try to stop a Krogan airdrop. The Spectre looked over her shoulder in alarm just in time to see Rex slam his fist into the door control. The only person in a position to stop him, Revan, just shrugged her shoulders and stepped aside to allow the angry Krogan a clear path out of the shuttle. Rex. Too late. Rex had already jumped out of the Kodiak. And while that normally would only be a minor concern, normally the shuttle wasn't hovering nearly 100 feet in the air over a heavily guarded STG site. Already Shepard could see some Solarians rushing to confront Rex, and it was probably down to luck that no one had opened fire yet. Damn it. Cortez, get us lower. I need to get down there now. The last thing they needed was the chief of Clan Erdnut being killed on the Solarian homeworld. On it, Commander. Cortez lowered the Kodiak to a much more reasonable 20 feet and Shepard wasted no time jumping out, followed by the rest of her team. Thankfully, the situation on the ground had only gotten slightly worse in the few seconds she took her eyes off of Rex. Only 2 Solarians were groaning on the ground as another dozen surrounded them in a semicircle pointing a variety of weapons their way. Now she just had to think of a way to deal with this without starting another war. Stand down. Hold your fire. Thankfully, before anything unfortunate happened on either side, a Solarian in black armor, which stood out a bit from the normal soldier's white, so Shepard assumed he was either important or in charge, ran out between the 2 groups and even shoved some of the soldiers' weapons down so they weren't pointed at Shepard's group. Commander Shepard, please control your colleague. We only found out about this transfer a few moments ago. The newcomer pleaded, so they did know about the transfer. Shepard was relieved this was a case of slow mail instead of the Dalatras screwing them over. And since she was effectively here to oversee the transfer of a civilian, a firefight was the last thing she wanted. I'd love to avoid a diplomatic incident. She called back. But as you can see, tensions are a bit high and you have something incredibly valuable to my friend Rex here. Something worth dying over. Rex growled, glaring at the Solarians. As would we, Commander. The Solarian placated. This matter can be resolved, but this is a highly secure facility. As a Council Spectre, you and your team are free to move as you please, but I must insist your companions remain under guard. The black-armored Solarian gestured at both Rex and Revan as he said that. Considering both of them were considered heads of state, it made sense the Dalatras didn't want either poking around a secret facility if she could help it. The bad news was Rex didn't look like he was in an accommodating mood. Rex and I can stay here while you finish the transfer, Shepard. Revan offered. While you are doing that, I can answer any questions these people have about the installation steps for the planetary shield. I'll only release the full manual after the transfer is complete. The Sith turned to look at Rex. If that's fine with you. Rex gave everyone a final glare but relented. Fine. But anything goes wrong and all bets are off. Shepard gave the masked Sith a nod of thanks for the timely save before she followed Solarian deeper into the base. Again, apologies for the rough welcome. He said. I'm Paddock Rix, and I appreciate your understanding, Commander. With war on everyone's minds, our people are on edge. Shepard opened her mouth to respond, but was cut off by a shout from up ahead where a massive horned creature was being moved in a containment shield. One she unfortunately recognized. I'd hoped to never see one of those again. Liara muttered from behind them, and Shepard had to agree. Standing almost 3 times as tall as a Krogan and looking about 3 times as brutal, the Yarg were theoretically an extremely primitive race that had been quarantined from the wider galaxy when they had killed and eaten the first contact party sent to their homeworld. Primitive didn't mean stupid though, as one of the previous Shadow Brokers had found out when he had abducted one as a pet. The Yarg had learned everything he could from his then-owner before killing and replacing them as the new broker until Shepard and her group had found out when helping Liara hunt down the Shadow Broker for her own needs. That had been one of the most intense and dangerous fights against a single opponent in her life, and the only reason it wasn't number one was because Shepard had faced a thresher more on foot. Seeing another one up close wasn't making her feel particularly excited. As you can see, this base contains sensitive information. Paddock Wilkes continued, ignoring Liara's comment. The work we do is highly confidential. And what kind of work is that? Shepard asked, trying to push the biological killing machine out of her mind. Evolutionary trials, morphological simulations, exogenetic assessments. Wicks listed off. Shepard understood some of those words. Nothing is ever simple with Solarians, is it? Science has always been our best defense. Paddock Wicks smiled. The research we do here has kept Sorkesh safe for millennia. Does that involve studying lost Krogan? Shepard jumped on the opportunity to discuss the actual reason she was here. As much as she believed the Dalatras wouldn't try at all something that risked hostilities with the Turians, Krogan, and the Sith Empire, that didn't mean she enjoyed sitting on a particular political bomb longer than she needed to. The sooner they were off this planet and everyone had what they wanted, the better. The females were in poor health when we found them on Tukanka. Wicks sidestepped, not actually answering if they were studying Krogan besides the ones they were here for. They were brought here to stabilize their condition. I'd still like to see them. Of course. I'll need to clear you for the lower levels. Please, follow me.